A lot of people ask me how I have a picture of President Trump and Vice President Pence with their arms around my shoulders. And my arms around their shoulders. And there we all three are, and it's a really great picture. But I got to interview him. I got vetted the night before by the Secret Service. A guy called me and he said, "Are you George Kim?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "I'm with the Secret Service. I'll need your full name, date of birth, and your full Social Security number." And I said, "Oh, I bet you do." And he said, "I really am with the Secret Service. You can call back and vet me, but I need that information. Mr. Trump wants the Tea Party endorsement." And so I gave him the information. I got in. There were only 5 of us in the room. And Mr. Pence, Mr. Trump, the photographer, and a security guard, and his handler, what we call a handler, somebody who was there to make sure that nothing went really wrong. And it wasn't recorded, so I didn't have to worry, but I got to ask him several questions. One of the questions was on Ambassador Chris Stevens in the Benghazi consulate. And I said, "Have you talked to any of the survivors from the Benghazi consulate that was attacked in Libya in 2012? He said, "Why should I?" I said, "You need to talk to some of the survivors to find out what really happened." He said, "Well, I know what happened. The military was called by Hilary Clinton to stand down. Of course, that order came from Obama as well. Stand down. Don't defend them." And nobody can figure that out. I said, "Well, actually, there's an answer." "What's the answer?" I said, "Ambassador Stevens was not to be killed. He was to be kidnapped." He said, "Why?" I said, "Because President Trump had 12 top Taliban commanders in prison. He wanted to get them out of there, back on the field. All he had was an army deserter, Bo Bergdahl, to trade all those top Taliban for. Wasn't enough. But if the Taliban had an ambassador, now there's something you can trade 12 top Taliban for." But here was the problem. 4 Navy SEAL heroes got involved. 3 of them got killed, and so did Ambassador Stevens.
Oh.
He was to be kidnapped. Problem was, Ambassador Stevens was not in on the gig. He didn't know what was going on. All he knew was they were being attacked. He was, according to eyewitnesses, he was tortured horrifically before he was killed, beyond comprehension torture.
Sad.
And the Navy SEALs, they use a laser to what they call painting an area for a missile hit that will take out the enemy. And they painted the area. The missile never came. Just a flyover by one F-15 would have scared them away. None were allowed to fly over. 4 Navy SEALs pretty much held off the hordes of Islamic terrorists for hours. And 3 of them got killed, and unfortunately so did Ambassador Stevens, before some friendly Muslims came in and took the consulate back. But by that time, the place had been destroyed. Stevens had been killed. The kidnap plan was thwarted because Stevens was killed instead. And so I think Mr. Trump wasn't allowed to use that in the debates against Hillary. It was just too much of a hot potato. But what she did, and what Obama did, I think was nothing short of treason. It was a little bit like, years ago, I met with an Undersecretary of Intelligence, I won't say which service, and he was in a state of grief over Mr. Clinton and what he had done with the Chinese. And he was beyond anger. He was in a state of grief. He said, "I've been with my career now in the armed service he was in for many years now, in fact 3 decades. Risen to the top." He said, "My career's been for nothing because the Chinese have all of our secrets." And then he started tearing up. He said, "They even have our submarine technology where the Chinese can find our submarines at sea." The Rohrabacher hearings were going on. Mr. Clinton was going to be called on the carpet. So were the Chinese for the dealings there with our president. Why did he give them all that information? Rohrabacher hearings would have brought it up, but then one night we bombed the Belgrade Chinese embassy. It had been cleared out beforehand of everybody except a cleaning lady and a bureaucrat. Everybody else was gone. And we bombed the embassy. And he said even a school kid could have found out where the Chinese embassy was in Belgrade. He said I was kept out of the loop that night, and we bombed the embassy. And instead of going to the Chinese demanding answers, we went to them on our knees begging for forgiveness for bombing their embassy. And then he started tearing up some more. Well, I was with Bob Goodlatte the evening that the Monica Lewinski story broke. He and I were sitting there by the fire, drinking hot chocolate, and the news came on. And it was CNN back then, there was no Fox. And we heard on the TV, it was just sort of a backlight for our conversation. We couldn't hear it very well, but we all of a sudden heard, we just received word that there's tapes from a Miss Linda Tripp implicating the president in an affair with a young intern named Monica Lewinski. Bob said, turn it up, George, turn it up. So I said, Bob, it's just another bimbo. Clinton's had dozens of them. He said, but if it's this one, it could be obstruction of justice and perjury. Those are impeachable. I said, Bob, the Rohrabacher hearings are going on. We're about to impeach him on treason. He said, that can't be proven yet. But this, if this is true, that's impeachable. I said, it's a straw man debate. By the way, do you know what a straw man is? A straw man, if you're on a debate team, it's a tool that you use. If a debate comes up that you just can't afford to lose, it's an issue that you just can't afford to have come up because you're going to lose, you bring up another subject where you absolutely will lose, but it avoids what you don't want to lose. You sacrifice it. It's called a straw man debate. I said, Bob, it's just a straw man. It's to throw us off track on the Rohrabacher hearings. Well, they went ahead. The House impeached him for perjury and lying and obstruction of justice. And I was going to say obstruction of Jesus. Freudian slip there. But, and of course, we knew when it hit the Senate, it would be about sex and lying, that a man in that position would lie about having sex with a young intern. And so he wasn't convicted. And that's the story behind that. And there's a problem with being in the right place at the right time. Sometimes it's the wrong place at the right time. Thank you.